Welcome back to another World Cup fantasy video. Today we're talking about the best budget players that will offer you the best value in the game. I'll highlight some and talk about some in name, but there are going to be 15 that I'm going to go into in detail with some key stats and things you need to know about them and why they could make some great picks. So I'm going to go through it by position, starting with the goalkeepers. If you end up enjoying this video, then be sure to drop it a like. Let's get this to over 300. I've got two drafts up on my channel, the first draft and the updated version. And finally, yesterday they updated the squads, so we have everyone that we need to available. But remember, there are some players that aren't going to go to the World Cup that are still in the game, so be sure not to add them to your squad. But without further ado, let's get straight into this video. There is a big discussion about who should be the number one for Ecuador, and it's between Galíndez, who is 4 million, and Domínguez, who's 4.5 million. Now, historically, Domínguez is the number one goalkeeper, but in recent years, when we're talking about the Copa America last year, and also the World Cup qualifiers, it was Galíndez who was first choice, so it's going to be really close between those two, and I think it will go down to the wire. But with Domínguez, he has started 4 of Ecuador's last 5 matches, which are mainly friendlies, of course, and that's 5 clean sheets out of 5 for Ecuador, whether it's Galíndez or Domínguez in goal over the last 5 games, and it will be very, very interesting to see who ends up on top in that one. But one goalkeeper I've got more certainty about is Roche, who is in my draft at the moment as my second goalkeeper. He's only 4 million, and his record for Uruguay is insane. So since Diego Alonso has taken charge of Uruguay, Roche has started 8 out of 9 games for them, and he's only conceded 2 goals in that time period. So I think Roche is probably a safer pick, despite the fact that, once again, a bit similar to Galíndez, he's up against someone who's more established historically in Muslera, in Uruguay's case. So it's going to be really close, maybe you could say, for both of them. But I believe Roche will be the first choice goalkeeper. And if I had to pick one between Domínguez and Galíndez, I'd probably go for Domínguez. I've spoken to several Ecuadorians about this, and the vast majority of them think it will be Domínguez. It's going to be very close, though, and I have to say, if it was me personally, I would choose Galíndez, but it's going to be close. It'll be interesting to see. I would just go about with a safer option in Roche. We have a lot of bargains in the defense, but maybe the first one could be the best of them all. Borna Sosa is only 3.5 million, and he is the main left back for Croatia. He's got attacking potential, and not only that, he should be first choice for the vast majority, if not all, of Croatia's matches in this World Cup. So Croatia have conceded just 4 goals from 10 games in Group H of World Cup qualifying, and they have 2 favourable fixtures, of course. The only one that's quite difficult on paper is Belgium, but I actually have to say, I think Croatia could top the group. They have a good chance of doing so. But it's mainly those fixtures against Morocco and Canada where you expect Croatia to potentially get a clean sheet. And you can also bench him in matchday free when the time comes, or you can wildcard him out if you're looking to wildcard in matchday free. So Borna Sosa could be a great option to start this World Cup campaign for matchdays 1 and 2. To highlight his attacking potential, Borna Sosa has 8 assists in 13 games in the Bundesliga and also in the German Cup. So I think he's a really good choice at 3.5 million. Croatia have plenty of options to cover their defence, such as their goalkeeper who's now been added to the game. He's only 5 million. And you've also got Gavardiol, who's only 4 million actually. And he is linked to so many big clubs in the January transfer window, in the summer. And he's doing a really good job for Leipzig. And I think he's a decent choice as well. So you could consider him. But Borna Sosa, he's a little bit cheaper, maybe a bit less nailed compared to Gavardiol. But he's still got that attacking potential, which I think makes him worth it over the other Croatia defenders. Next up, we have Mela, who we discussed in detail in the updated draft, so be sure to check that out. But to kind of summarize, he has 2 favourable fixtures here, and I think that Denmark could top the group. And matchday 2 will be difficult, but I believe Denmark have a really good chance. They've beaten France already twice in the Nations League this year, and they are the more informed team out of the 2. And to kind of summarize some brief stats very quickly, he actually has 2 goals and 1 assist from 6 games in Euro 2020, which is where he made a name for himself in fantasy football. And in 15 games post the Euros, he has continued this really good form with 5 goals, 4 assists and 8 clean sheets. So that's 17 returns in 15 games, which is incredible. So I think Mela is a bargain. And you've got, once again, a bit similar to Borna Sosa, you've got more expensive defenders from the same nation playing as the centre back, but why not go for those attacking fullbacks who have a higher chance of scoring a goal and getting those 7 points for scoring each single one of those goals, and they are able to get even more points than those that are more expensive. This is a riskier pick because Araujo has just come back from an injury and he might be a really big doubt for matchday 1. But if he's cleared fit and you're looking for a 3.5 million defender, Araujo is definitely worth considering, although I would prefer Borna Sosa because you already have Roche in goal to cover Uruguay defensively. But Uruguay have 4 clean sheets from the last 5 games, and the one game that they did concede was a loss to Iran, but they only conceded 1 goal. So defensively, they are very strong, and Araujo could be a really good way into that Uruguay defence. Marcos Acuna featured yesterday in a 5-0 victory against the United Arab Emirates, and he got an assist for Di Maria's fantastic volley, but he has been struggling with injury problems since June, and the injury specifically is called chronic groin discomfort. But he looked good yesterday. He was struggling a little bit physically, but he is in contention to start against Saudi Arabia in matchday 1. But he is also very risky in general because there is a lot of rotation with Tagliafico. Both of them are more than capable of doing a good job on the left-hand side. Tagliafico is a bit better defensively, you could argue, but Acuna is more of an all-rounder, and he helps in the build-up and also in the offensive play. Both of them obviously are fine options, and Argentina can depend on both of them. So Acuna isn't the most nailed, but when he does start, he has the best chance of getting assists and also potentially you could say goals, although he hasn't scored too many goals as the left-back for Argentina. He used to play as the left centre mid, but he then got a positional change, obviously for Sevilla as well as Argentina, and he's a good option at 4.5 million, as demonstrated with the assist yesterday, but he's also very risky, so take that with a pinch of salt, and I think the other options, especially Borna Sosa and Mela, are even better than Acuna. The final defender is Matty Cash, who's only 4 million, and he has made 7 appearances for Poland since switching nationalities, and he's already got a goal in that time. He will be playing as a more offensive wing back there for Poland, and I think he's going to be a decent option, especially for the first 2 match days, in particular matchday 2 against Saudi Arabia, who've only scored 3 times in the last 8 matches, and Poland actually beat Chile 1-0 with the kind of second string team, and also Mexico lost 2-1 to Sweden, and they've been awful over the last year or so. So I think Poland have a decent chance of getting a result there, but more so in matchday 2, that's where you can see a potential clean sheet for Poland and maybe an attack and return for Matty Cash. Matchday 3, I think, is one you want to avoid because I think Poland could concede 2 or more in that fixture. Even if Poland get a result, I don't expect them to basically keep Argentina out. So Matty Cash is a good option at 4 million, and he could actually be really good value for the first 2 match days. But then if you're looking to play a wild card in matchday 3, he's really easy to get out of that period, or you could bench him if you're using free transfers. We are now onto the midfielders, starting with Joshua Kimmich, who is probably my favourite Germany midfielder considering his price and what he can offer. Now, he's got the odd assist potential as well as goals, but you're mainly relying on key passes for him, and I think he's going to be dependable, get you 3 to 5 points in most match days, and he also is capable of getting those tackle points to also boost his score as well. He's not going to get anything absolutely outlandish, but for 7 million, he's a decent, reliable option, and I think he won't get too many 1 or 2 pointers. Let's see how that pans out, of course. Now, Kimmich, like I said, the key passes are what you're mainly looking for, but he did get 3 goals and 6 assists in 22 games for Bayern this season, and also for Germany in qualifying games he averaged 3.2 key passes per game, and remember, for every 2 key passes a player or a midfielder in particular gets 1 point for each one of those 2 key passes they make, and for every 3 tackles they also gain a point. So I think Kimmich is a decent option, and apart from the Spain fixture, he's definitely got maybe a bit more of a higher ceiling against Japan and Costa Rica. One player who's featured in all of my drafts is Bergwijn, so check out my analysis of him in my updated draft, but he's out of position. He's playing up front alongside Memphis Depay, who is also a bit of an injury doubt, but he is in training. The same goes for Dumfries as well, by the way. That's the kind of update we've had over the last few days. So Netherlands are looking a bit stronger going into matchday 1, and of course Senegal could be without Sadio Mane for the first few match days. But Bergwijn has 5 goals and 1 assist in his last 6 starts for the Netherlands, and he also has 7 goals and 3 assists in 13 games for Ajax this season. So he's been really good for club and country, and I would be very surprised if he didn't start in matchday 1, which is a crucial game for the Netherlands to kickstart their campaign, and probably against the toughest opponent in their group, although I think Ecuador definitely have a say in that. And now let's move on to Olsen, another one who is featured actually in my recent draft, and I think he's a really good pick at 6 million, and he could be the best Denmark midfielder, and they've got the likes of Højbjerg and Eriksen. Olsen was Denmark's top scorer in the World Cup qualifiers with 5 goals, and not only that, he got 3 assists, and this was just from 7 starts, and he also averages 1.4 shots on target, and that stat actually was courtesy of All About FPL, so check out their website and all their great World Cup fantasy content. And also in the last 3 games, of course, Olsen has 2 goals, so he's looking really good, I think, even showing some really good form for his club, Club Brugge, who's finished 2nd in the Champions League group, and he got 2 goal contributions from 4 games in the Champions League. So he's another really good player. Now, Gonzalo Plata is probably Ecuador's most exciting prospect, but he's been a bit underwhelming, I'd say, this season. Ecuador have the youngest average age of any nation going into this World Cup, so I think that's obviously a really good sign for them going forwards. But Plata only has 2 assists in 10 La Liga games this season, but his record in the World Cup qualifiers was more impressive with 3 goals and 2 assists in 7 starts. But like I said in my first draft video, Ecuador are a good team. They can also compete with the very best nations, as they have done over the last few years, but they do struggle to score goals, and I think defensively they're a bit more impressive, and there are more points to be had with their goalkeeper and also their defender. So Plata's a good option, probably my favorite kind of attacking player that they have, but in terms of fantasy points, he might not be the best option in this game, and also from those that we're showing you right now. And finally, we have Leandro Trossard, who's been fantastic for Brighton this season, and he's also got a good record for Belgium when he actually gets the start. So he's got 7 goals and 2 assists in 14 Premier League games this season, but he's only started 1 of Belgium's last 4 games, and that definitely concerns me. Now, with Eden Hazard struggling with injuries, I think Trossard has a really good chance of taking his spot, but I'm not so sure if that will be the case. And he's also got 2 goals and 1 assist in 7 World Cup qualifiers, with only 3 of them being starts, and in the Nations League he has 2 goals in 6 games and only 1 start once again. So Trossard, when he gets the opportunities, he takes them, but there are a lot of benchings there, and that would definitely concern me. I know he's only 5.5 million, and at that price and below, he's probably the most exciting pick, but I would like someone who's a bit more nailed on, such as Kazri, for example, at 4.5 million for Tunisia, who had a great World Cup in 2018, and he's someone I'm actually considering to go for instead of Trossard, and that would also enable me to make improvements up front and also in the defense. But now let's move on to the forwards, and be sure to let me know in the comment section below what you think of all the players we're talking about. Here we have the 3 forwards, and of course there are many others in the game, and I personally wouldn't go for Estrada and a 5th in particular. Of course, there could be good options for Matchday 1, but not so much going forwards. So let's start off with Estrada. 6 goals and 2 assists in the World Cup qualifiers, so he was actually Ecuador's top scoring player in that competition, and Ecuador have only scored twice in the last 5 games, despite the fact they haven't conceded in that time period. So Ecuador, once again, good defensively, but going forwards, poor finishers up front, and they don't score enough, and they probably don't create enough chances as well, in my opinion. Now, moving on to a 5th, who is someone a bit more under the radar. He is probably the best 4.5 million striker if you're looking to go for that kind of structure. He's got 21 goals and 30 assists in 75 games for Qatar. Once again, that stat was from All About FPL, so be sure to check them out. And he's nailed on for 90 minutes. He's on penalty set pieces, but once again with Qatar, they're not a nation I particularly expect to do that well, and obviously home advantage is a really big thing, but I don't expect them to go through to the next round, and I don't expect them to score that many goals, especially against the Netherlands. So I think a 5th is maybe a decent option for the first match day, but I'm not so sure about him, and he's just a 4.5 million striker if you really need it. But Mitrovic is someone I have a lot of confidence in. He's 7 million. He is facing Brazil first. Now that would definitely put me off, but match days 2 and 3, I think he has a great chance of scoring. And as we all know, Mitrovic has an injury problem at the moment, but his manager, Dragan, actually said something like, Mitrovic will play Matchday 1, he will find a way, even if we cut off his head, which is obviously a bit extreme. But Mitrovic has 52 goals in his last 56 league appearances, which is absolutely insane. Even in the Premier League as well, he's got a great record this season. 6 goals in 5 Nations League matches, 10 goals in 10 Euro 2021 qualifiers, and 8 goals in 8 World Cup qualifiers. Mitrovic is one of the best goal scorers in this tournament. He's only 7 million, and I think Serbia are very underrated. We've covered many players in this video, but there are so many others to cover, and obviously we don't have the time to go through each single one of them in detail. But Galindez, we mentioned before, he actually helped Alcas win the Ecuadorian League title. He's also a really good choice, and it just depends on who's going to start between him and Dominguez. Very risky, but whoever starts has a good chance of a clean sheet against Qatar, and I think Ecuador could actually progress to the next round. Then you've got Gavardiol. Once again, if you want a nailed-on Croatia defender, maybe you have a few doubts about Borna Sosa, then Gavardiol is your person. He's your guy. 4 million defender for Croatia, one of the actually best defensive sides going into this tournament, you could say. Then you have Diallo from Senegal. Maybe if you fancy Senegal to go through, a 4 million defender for them, and Senegal have a decent defensive record. Then you've got a few others from Tunisia, such as Ali Malou, but I probably wouldn't go for him because I don't expect Tunisia to really keep that many clean sheets, and I think they could actually concede additional goals, which means minus points, which you want to avoid. Roberts from Wales could be decent, especially when they don't face England. So against the USA and Iran, Roberts has a decent chance of potentially 1 clean sheet from those 2 matches, and he's only 4 million. Then you've got 2 Ecuadorian scoring defenders in Hincapié and Estupiñán, who's got more attacking threat, and actually he created the most chances amongst any defender during the World Cup qualifiers in CONMEBOL. Then you have Jesus Gallardo, who actually got a goal and an assist in a 4-0 victory versus Iraq recently, but of course Mexico did lose against Sweden in the recent friendly. Then you've got De Paul from Argentina, who was actually incredible against the United Arab Emirates. He had the most touches, the most ball recoveries. He also created the most chances. I mean, there were so many stats he led, and he has done this throughout the whole World Cup qualifiers, and he's been one of Argentina's most important players over the last 3 years under Lionel Scaloni. Then you've got Casemiro at 6 million. He's a tackle machine, but I actually am not that convinced about him in World Cup fantasy. You've got Zielinski, who's on set pieces. He's two-footed, and he's been doing really well for Napoli this season, even in the Champions League. Then it's between Nicolas de la Cruz and also Ariscareta as the left winger. I think there's a lot of rotation there, so I'd probably avoid, but they're both worth mentioning, and whoever starts there has a good chance of returns. Then you've got the likes of Edson Alvarez from Mexico, once again a bit similar to Casemiro, good for tackles, but I'm not so sure if he's good for much else. You've got Kazri at 4.5 million. He had a really good World Cup in 2018, but I'm not so sure if Tunisia will do as well this time round. Of course, they were a bit unlucky actually to not do better in the last World Cup campaign. Then you've got Kostic from Serbia. He creates so many chances, so in terms of key passes and maybe assists, he could do really well, but of course he does face Brazil first. And then we've got Højbjerg for Denmark. He's got more goals and assists for Spurs this season, and he does make a lot of tackles, so he's a bit of a jack of all trades, and he could be a decent and underrated option from Denmark. And then finally we have the three forwards. So we've got Gakpo there that you can see on screen. He's got 9 goals and 12 assists in 14 Eredivisie matches, and he also has 5 goals assists in 5 Europa League matches. That's goals and assists, by the way. And he's got 2 goals and 1 assist in 5 Nations League matches. Then you've got the likes of Taremi, who's doing incredibly well in the Champions League. 5 goals and 3 assists in 5 games, and he helped Porto top the group despite an early red card in the tournament. And then you've got Richarlison, and his record actually is really good for Brazil. He's got 7 goals and 2 assists in his last 6 games for Brazil, and he is their main striker. But what Brazil sometimes do is play Neymar down the middle, then play Vinicius and Rafinha as the wingers. So Brazil kind of chop and change with their attacking line. Sometimes Vinicius drops out, sometimes it's Richarlison. Neymar's the kind of one who always starts. He will get goals, and he does really well for Brazil, and I think he's going to do a good job in this World Cup if he gets the opportunities. But there are so many other players to cover. You've got Enner Valencia as a 1-week punt, maybe a matchday 1, and he's also in incredible form in the Turkish League with 13 goals and 4 assists in 12 Turkish League matches, and he also got 4 goals and 1 assist in the qualifiers. Then you've got Seferovic as a 4.5 million striker. Although he isn't first choice, you've got Okafor and also Mbolo, who is the main striker there for Switzerland. And you've also got Funes Mori from Mexico, nationalized from Argentina. He's a decent option as well, but he actually isn't starting recently as Henry Martin starting up front for Mexico. And then finally, Ferran Torres, who's 7 million, but he's been very, very weird. He's a very weird case with him because he's got 4 goals in 6 World Cup qualifiers, but then you look at his recent record for Spain and he hasn't actually scored in the Nations League, and he also hasn't started in recent games. It's kind of been some starts, then sometimes on the bench, so he hasn't been as convincing or as nailed as he once was. But Ferran Torres is one to also think about as well. So that's a lot of budget players covered. Let me know your thoughts. There are going to be a lot of players that I missed out on, but I have covered the vast majority of the best ones. And then you've got some really good potential players here. Borna Sosa, I think, is definitely one to highlight. You've also got the likes of De Paul, who's a really good option at 5 million, and many others that we've covered in this video already. But thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. Let's get this video to over 300 likes, and we're very close to 17,000 subscribers, so let's keep on pushing. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and you can also become a patron or a channel member. The links are in the description below. The same goes for the World Cup Fantasy League and the Discord server. All of that is there. I wish you all the best of luck for Matchday 1 and the rest of the World Cup tournament, and I'll see you next time.